Okay, now on this vehicle page, we want to render the photos of this vehicle. Now here in vehicle repository, we're currently eager loading this vehicle object with its features, make, and model. Sure, we can add photos here as well, but this query is getting fatter and fatter. Now, this may not be an issue for the context of this application because this is not going to be Facebook or Twitter with a billion users. However, I want to show you a different way to load these photos. So on this page, instead of getting a complete representation of this vehicle in one request, we can send two requests to the server. So in one request, we get all this basic information, the features, the contact. And in the other request, we get the photos. When the user lands on this page, we're loading the content of the Photos tab behind the scene. So the user doesn't even notice that we're sending two requests to the server. And if they quickly switch the tab, we can always display a loader icon to indicate that this content is still being loaded. So back to our repository, I'm going to leave this query the way it is. Instead, I'm going to create another repository called Photo Repository. And with this repository, we can get all the photos assigned to a vehicle. Now to save time, I'm going to pause the recording because the code I'm going to write is very similar to what you have seen before. So I'll be back in a few seconds and then we'll review my code. Okay, so I've created a new repository called Photo Repository. Here we have one method, getPhotos, which takes a vehicle ID and returns an IEnumerable of photo. The implementation is pretty simple. However, what I wanted to note here is that previously we didn't have this vehicle ID property on our photo class. So let's go to the photo class. I added this property here, which is the foreign key for the relationship from photo to the vehicle. Now, because previously we created this relationship, I didn't have to create another migration because the schema of the database is not changed. I just added an extra property in our domain model, which still aligns with the existing schema. So this is our new repository. Next, in Photos controller, I added a new action called getPhotos, which takes a vehicle ID and returns an IEnumerable of photo resource. Again, the implementation is pretty basic, so we get all the photos from the repository and map them to resources. Note that here I didn't check for the existence of this vehicle because that would cause an extra round trip to the database without adding any values. So when we hit this endpoint with a valid vehicle ID, this is what we get in the response. However, if we pass an invalid vehicle ID, we simply get an empty array. So we don't need to check if that vehicle exists or not. So this is our new action. Then in photo.service, I added a new method, getPhotos, and here we simply call this new endpoint. Again, very similar to what you have done before. And finally, in view vehicle component, I declared a new field here, photos. And in ng-on-init, I used the photo service to initialize this field. Okay? So now let's go to view vehicle.html. Here's our photos tab. So just below this input file, I'm going to add an image and apply the ng-for directive. Let photo of photos. For the source, I'm going to render photo.filename. And I'm going to prefix this with /uploads. Now finally, to make it look a little bit better, I'm going to apply a bootstrap class, img-thumbnail. All right, let's try it. So here I go to the Photos tab. Beautiful. We've got one image here. Now there is one more piece we need to implement. When we upload a new file, we want this image to appear here straight away. So back in our view vehicle component, in the upload photo method, instead of displaying the response in the console, I'm going to put this photo object that we get in our photos field. So first, let's rename this to photo, and then add this .photos.push photo. Now, if I upload a new file, it appears here straight away. Beautiful. Next, I'm going to show you how to add a progress bar while uploading a photo.